Yeah, we got gangs.
You smoke?
We smoke cigarette. We crip niggas.
Do you hang out all night here?
Don't say, bro. This is our street. We own this shit.
You own it?
Yeah, we own this shit, cuz.
Hey, do you guys cause trouble or not?
Sometimes
Sometimes. What kind of trouble?
breaking in there.
What are the police doing about all this?
They're doing all.
The Prime Minister was just here. You don't think he's doing much to fix?
No, he's not. He's not even doing anything right.
What about the Voice? He's signing up the Voice to. You don't think that?
Shit, no, he's not.
Do you think that's gonna help?
No, it's bullshit.
Avi Yemini for Rebel News in Alice Springs, and today this is our final video that I'm going to file, and today I've actually got the man that's been behind the camera the entire week, and you can see all the reports that we've filed throughout our travels here in Alice Springs at therealvoice.com.au. But in this video, I want to recap, especially, people haven't seen you, but you've experienced this entire journey with me. What have we learned? What have you learned?
Oh, look, I think the main thing that I've learned is whatever we're being shown in the media back in the cities is not the reality of what it's like on the ground in Alice Springs. And I think that's really important to mention.
I totally agree. Look, I think a consistent theme throughout the week, no matter who we talk to, black, white, street people, business owners, was that it's these kids that are out of control, and they all blame who? One people.
Yeah, I mean, they blame the parents, which is like the same across pretty much any culture or any community. When the parents don't look after the kids, there's issues.
Where are the parents? They're down in the park and drinking metho and stuff like that.
Bullshit. That's a lot of bullshit. Cut the fucking parents off the fucking pension. Get the kids off the street. Mother and father should have taken the stupid kids back home where they belong to, where they've been fucking bred and born,
The parents need to be there. There needs to be other things for them to do, keep them occupied. Children are naughty. Sometimes parents need a helping hand as well, too, to provide whatever care they can. I mean, after all, the saying goes, it takes a community to raise a child, and we're living that literally right now as the whole community is trying to band together to try and raise these children.
And obviously here, the delinquency rate, how it's happening is happening on another level that's impacting the whole community.
Yeah, well, it's portrayed back there that it's all a racial thing. There is zero racial tensions here. Like, nobody sees skin colour. In Melbourne, they reported it as skin colour because obviously they fly in a journalist from ABC who reports it based on the narrative without even entering the meeting, and they're there to, I guess, propagate their government's message, especially in the lead up to something like The Voice. But the kids, they just, what we're seeing, two things there is that they're not afraid of the law. They're not afraid of the consequences there. It's all a big joke to them. And these are little kids, 9 to 18, all on the street all night with zero fear and zero regard for the law. And they don't want to go home. And, they say that they're bored. They're happy to tell us that they're committing crimes. Nobody's denying it. Everybody's angry, black, white, everyone's angry about it. And everybody's blaming the parents. But the question is, what's happening at home? Because we did go and see a couple of the government housing properties. And I don't know, me personally, I wouldn't want to live in those.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking, like just seeing the conditions that those kids would be growing up in. It really puts it into perspective how lucky we are. And I can I understand why those kids don't want to be in that environment, right? Out here in the fresh air or in the shopping center, for instance, in the AC or whatever, it's comfortable. They're with their friends. They might feel safe. At home, it's not the most ideal conditions in terms of a living environment from what I've seen. Now, that's probably not across the board, but at least the kids which are on the street might be facing those conditions. So, I don't blame them for not wanting to be in that condition. And I think those are the kind of issues that need to be tackled. And I don't think we can tackle those issues when we're focusing on race, right? Because like you said, out here on the streets, people aren't talking about race.
When you look at the housing, when you see it, it's clear that their lifestyle is, they're small houses, but it's not only that, it's the condition. You can see that it's been trashed, drug paraphernalia lying around. There's smashed windows. It's like, it's a violent, unsafe place. When the street becomes the safe place for little kids, That's what we need to look at, and that's what we need to fix to get to the root cause and the root problem here.
If I grew up in those conditions, like that would have an impact on my life, right? You know, what are the activities for children in this town, right? What are the things that they can engage in?
And you look around, you know, the extracurricular activity that is clear. You can see it everywhere you go. Boarded up windows. You know, the signs of just senseless crime is everywhere, and everyone's sick of it. They don't even change. It's behind us. They don't even change the windows. It's all glass.
From what we can tell, these kids are occupied by American culture. They're talking about Bloods and Crips and doing gang signs and all this kind of stuff. We're in the middle of the desert in, Australia, in Alice Springs. So how has that become the dominant force for them to who they identify as? Because they're identifying as American rappers, and they're doing the gang signs. They're wearing Tupac Shakur t-shirts. They're wearing the chains. They're doing all this kind of stuff. Why has that culture so easily supplemented the family and all these kind of things that these kids should have as an ordinary Australian kid growing up in this country?
I believe in some communities, they've turned some communities into dry communities, so you can't take alcohol there at all or not legally. But in Alice Springs itself, the alcohol ban was quite confusing for me. It's 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. So when we got here, it was while there was an alcohol ban, and then the next day there's no alcohol and there's limited hours of operation. And, police at the door checking IDs because I think some people are banned. But and you can only make, more importantly, the police are at the door to make sure that you're doing your one purchase a day. But your purchase a day was huge.
Yeah, that's right. So I think we're probably a bit naive when we hear the word alcohol ban. We think complete ban. But obviously there's, ways and rules and certain things on certain dates and times and limits and all this kind of stuff. So it is a ban, but obviously people still have access to alcohol. If the rest of the communities can have alcohol and have a certain lifestyle and do these certain things, then should we be aspiring for all members of our community, including Indigenous communities, to aspire to that as well? And I think looking down on them as people who can't control themselves and we have to do all these things for them, I think it's probably the wrong approach long term. But I understand how it's a short-term band-aid fix for some of the issues that you see sometimes. But
from what we understand, from what we've heard is here it's quiet things down, and I think the police presence,
it works,
but
maybe.
it pushed it on because people were looking for the alcohol.
Exactly, yeah. Like those prohibition work, and it doesn't work usually. People find a way, and I think long term it's all band-aid fixes. I don't think again that's the real issue. There's more core issues fundamentally that we're hearing about that relates to how the upbringing of children, the family unit, and what people's opportunities are and how they see themselves. I think it's uplifting communities in that way, which actually pushes them to not turn to alcohol. These are the kind of things that we should be workshopping and looking at. And whether our leaders or whether our media in the cities are doing that, it's very, from my perspective, I hardly see it in that way. It's always an issue about some sort of racial injustice, some sort of injustice which has been done, which leads people to behave in this way or do these type of things. And, I don't see that, man. When I see these Indigenous kids and all this kind of stuff just being here, for me, the first experience really being in this much of a Aboriginal community, they're just like us growing up, kids and stuff, it's really, the difference is the upbringing and the opportunities that you have. And I don't think they're getting that type of upbringing or opportunity because of whatever circumstances that we're not addressing.
And I agree with everything you're saying. I do think though, it is Band-Aid solutions, but the alcohol is clearly a problem that even in the short term, you need to get a grip on to be able to deal with the more fundamental issues.
Of course, yeah, you got to get a grip on it, right? The scenes that we were seeing out of here and, the CCTV footage and all this kind of stuff.
And what people are describing.
And some of the things that people are going through. It's almost like you're being, imagine living in your suburb and you're just kind of being terrorized at nighttime where you can't come out, you can't do things.
The trauma is real. People, literally everyone we've spoken to who live here, black, white, they tell you just don't come out at night. People thought we were nuts to come here.
Yeah, no, you kind of are. It is pretty ruthless out here.
It is concerning. I mean, I
drive around at night and go, oh my God, I hope no one throws a rock at me. I've got my baby in the back seat.
We've had machetes pulled on us, we've had cars stolen, we've had cars jumping gutters just like a metre or two away from us and whatnot. So it gets pretty crazy out here. This is probably a quiet night tonight, but every time we say that, it tends to pop off.
They think we're nuts that we came out at night.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't blame them, only because, not because it's like targeted violence or something like this. The kids kind of have no filter. They're not thinking about right or wrong. They're just doing stuff in their clicks in the moment, and they might not understand the consequences of the actions that they're taking. So whether that's smashing a window or kicking something down or robbing a house or whatever it is, they don't really understand the consequences of good and bad and how that impacts them, how that impacts their community or their families. So I think because of that lack of understanding, it makes it a bit dangerous because it's unpredictable. And I think that's that unpredictability which is causing tension within the communities, because you don't know, like, you could be walking and you could just be,
Well, from what I could tell, juvenile detention wasn't even really scary to them. The worst was that it was boring, but they would literally, these kids were telling us, oh, we get to hang with our brothers. What kind of trouble do coppers get you in here?
Juvenile.
Oh, juvenile?
Yeah, we got juvie.
Oh, you guys been to juvie?
Yeah, all of us.
You haven't been? Is juvie shit?
Yeah,
It's shit? Oh, it's boring. Are you scared to go to juvie?
No.
What is that?
Who's that?
Oh, you got brothers there?
Yeah.
There is no real deterrence. They're not afraid of going to jail. They're not afraid of the police. That the system here is designed to protect them instead of the community. That's what we're hearing from people here, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. Like the way I see some of these politicians carry on, and it's particularly ones that take the position of speaking for everyone. Sometimes when they speak, they say, my people and all this kind of stuff. And you think, like, people in these parts of the country will have a real connection to them because of this type of messaging and the type of things they're saying.
Do you know who Lydia Thorpe is?
I never heard of her.
She's from Melbourne. She's a politician, an Indigenous politician who says she speaks for all Indigenous. But you've never heard of her?
Never heard of her, never seen her, never been into her.
Do you know who Linda Burney is?
Yeah.
She's the Indigenous Minister. Yeah. Does she come here ever?
No, she's scared.
Linda Burney, no.
You don't know Linda Burney?
No, I don't know that name.
Do you know Jacinta Price?
Yeah, I know. I don't know Jacinta Price, but I know of her.
You know Jacinta Price, who's obviously involved in issues here, but you don't know the Minister of Australia who's supposed to care about the issues here. Why? Do you think she's ever been here?
No.
Why not?
Because if she's been in the Northern Territory, she would have went to Darwin, because that'd be more safe for her, because if she came here, she'd get up, I reckon.
Local people here don't actually seem to know the loudest voices who purport to speak for them. They know nothing about them, and they don't actually believe in their message. Did you find that as well?
Again, like, I wanted to come firsthand with you and see it for myself and ask people these questions. And they don't know. They don't know who Lydia Thorpe is. They know here and there they might know her, but they don't really know what she means, what she's talking about. And even the Indigenous Minister for Australia, they don't really know who she is. Like, some people said, yeah, maybe, like, they kind of know, but they don't know. Like, they're not visible in the community. I think they participate amongst the activist-funded groups that are active in these communities. And look, they might be doing good work, whatever it is, but they're not engaging with the people out here on the streets or the families. From the answers that we've gotten back, that's the read that I take from it. Now, what that means, people can make up their own mind about what that means. But clearly, what we're seeing from the, I would say the activist class in terms of our politicians and these kind of coastal elites in our cities, and their representation of these issues, we have to look at that with a grain of salt, because that is perhaps from their own agenda, their own political narratives and their own biases. And it's not always representative of the views of the people that we're running into.
It's clearly not representative of very many here.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we've touched on it. I think the best thing here has been, we see it, and the media, again, going back to ABC, which is what for me triggered this trip, and I'm glad you came with me, is that we saw them pick a couple of activists and put them on the TV, And we never get to really hear from the real people
Yeah.
here, which is what we came to do. We wanted to hear from the locals.
Yeah.
And that's what we got, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like I thought, like after, like let's just give ABC the benefit of the doubt, and they just went to a person on the street and asked them about, white supremacists. I thought when we go out there and just ask people, hey, white supremacy, they'll be like, yeah, that's the issue, right? No, like unless even if you kind of, it's not something that people just blurt out. They don't just come out and say, hey, look, it's it's the white man's fault, it's the white supremacists, all this kind of stuff. But that's kind of the way that people are meant to feel from watching the news broadcast, from our national broadcaster especially. And they've been called out on it. And I think the reason they got called out on it was because it was so blatantly obvious what they were doing. And I think people in Alice Springs even watching that would have known, the community would have known that this is not a true representation of our community. But it just goes to show you how manipulative our media can be with these issues and how vital it is that we hear from the people on the street. Like with any issue around the world, once you hear from the people on the street, that gives you a gauge. Of course, those people aren't involved in the political decisions maybe of the town and all this kind of stuff, but it gives you a gauge of what is actually impacting them and what they feel. And the fact that the first thing that comes out of their mouth is not, something to do with racism or white supremacy or something, that tells you a lot. And the first thing that comes out of their mouth is to do with parents and delinquency and what these kids are up to. Doesn't matter what race, whatever. So that tells you so much of that story just in that interaction. And it's a shame that, the media that's funded by the government in our country aren't willing to do those kind of stories because why? It impacts their narrative in the cities maybe. It impacts their views on things like The Voice or things like Changing Australia Day. So they keep it all within this like echo chamber of their own ideas. And I think it's more valuable than ever to hear from the people here, because at the end of the day, regardless of all the issues that we're facing as a country, The Voice and Australia and all this stuff, at the end of the day, the main issue here is what's actually happening in this town. And I don't think the issues outside of this town are going to fix what's happening here. I think it's the actual solutions to the problems here that fixes it. And ABC's approach is that we fix the country and it fixes Alice Springs. And I think in Alice Springs, that's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about Alice Springs and how do we make our community a safe one for our businesses to thrive, our families to thrive, and most importantly, the Indigenous kids who are, struggling in this town right now, for them to thrive. How do we make it a successful community for that? And it's a great disservice that the ABC is doing by not really focusing on those types of issues.
Absolutely agreed. And I think it was an absolutely successful week because of that, because to be fair, what is happening now is unsustainable. The fact that you have small businesses, you have, with bollards in front of their buildings just to protect it from kids. That's the thing. That's the crazy thing. It's kids in unsafe housing, unsafe homes, being, with parents that are just not controlling them for whatever reasons. I think there's a multitude of reasons. And then they have a media talking about the most ridiculous stuff. So the solutions will never come if we don't shine a light here. And I think this week we shone a light. So I want to thank you for actually coming. And for all of you out there, if you believe what we did here is important, check out all the different reports, all the videos for yourself and share them around. therealvoice.com.au. You can also have your own say there. We want to hear from you on the poll. And, this was a trek and a half. It actually cost us, more to get to Alice Springs than it would have cost us to go to Europe. That's how remote this place is. And I get it. That's why a lot of networks won't actually come here, because it's just not worth it for them. They can tell the story from far because they know what's going on without even being here on the ground. And the one time that they send somebody here, they don't even bother going inside. But we did. And that's all thanks to your help, guys, the viewers. If you think it's important, we flew down as a team with security and chuck in a few bucks to help cover those costs. I think it cost us $5,000 just on flights, another couple of grand for accommodation and a vehicle. But I think it was worth it.
100%.
therealvoice.com.au. Check them all out, have your say, and help cover the costs.